Yo, what's going on, guys? Today we're going to be helping out my good friend Ratforia with a VOD review. We are going to help coach him to Grand Master. So currently he is in Masters 4 or Masters 5, and I don't think he's too far off from where he wants to be at GM and maybe even top 500, but there are a few things that you can do to improve. I mean, you never really stop improving, right? I think in general, there are just a few things that master players have problems with, namely one of those being positioning, ability usage, and overall grand scheme sort of things, such as ultimate tracking and ultimate usage. All of those things are kind of lost, but you get a good sense of them from playing in scrims and with teams, and that ends up being a bigger part of actual ranked ladder experience as well. You just don't quite see it that often because as the game goes on, and I experience this too, there are less and less people in voice chat. There are some good reasons for it, a lot of toxicity, and people just want to avoid that altogether, but really you get a good sense of how valuable communication is and coordinating ultimates, and just kind of planning ultimate rotations in general can be helpful as well. There are so many little things that you can do at the Masters level to help reach GM. Maybe there are a few things you can take away from this as well if you're at a lower rank, so let's go ahead and dive into it. And as always, make sure to leave a like, a sub, and comment down below, maybe even with a replay code, who you're playing as and what your rank is, and maybe we can do a VOD review just for you as well on this channel. So as we can see, the game is about to start and Ratforia is playing Ana. Now, the location that we're at here is a little bit awkward, but it is kind of good. So this is kind of a map specific thing, but obviously most of the team wants to be somewhere around here, right? Because around here they're able to get a lot of poke damage in, which allows you to get your ultimate charge before the enemy gets theirs, which gives you what you call an ultimate advantage. And when you're at the higher elos of the game, ult advantage is really big because everybody has really good mechanics. At the higher levels, you're going to have people who are probably equal mechanic-wise. The real difference comes in is how much extra damage you can do in order to get your ultimate quicker than the enemy team. Because an ultimate is something that you can have access to before the enemy team, then that gives you a huge advantage, otherwise known as the ult advantage. And that's kind of what the game is at the higher elo. It's more about doing a lot of ult farming. So there are always a few things that you can always do at the beginning of the game to try to help get you that very small little bit of ult charge and ult advantage. And what you should be doing here is try to get a really big anti-nade on the enemy team. Now, if you're trying to be extremely perfect, you can try to look up ML7, grenade spots, right? Throw it up into the air so the grenade ends up hitting all of the little people on the ground as they're walking through somewhere like a choke point. Otherwise, though, this location or positioning that you're currently at is not terrible. However, I would not really suggest it because one of the problems here, as you can see, is not only do you have no angle on your team, your Zenyatta also just dropped down, right? Which means he also can't heal them. So now your team is basically cut off from heals completely. So while this position is really good if the enemy team is at this choke point, it's not so good at the very beginning of the game. It's actually perfectly fine for you to be with your team, and then you could just take this platform and then jump to this platform, and then you'll be okay, right? So this is kind of an awkward positioning. While it is really good a little bit later on, right now you're probably going to see your team struggle with heals, right? And that's kind of Zenyatta's fault too. I mean, he kind of dropped down right here, and there's no reason for him to do that because he also could have just hid over here. So yeah, this ended up kind of turning into a disaster off the bat. Ideally, the only thing I think you could have done differently is I think you should have been positioned up with your team at the beginning. While that may seem a bit dangerous, you always have the ability to just run back because as the team's in this choke point, you can just go into this little room, jump here, and then, they're not going to be able to hit you. You can even go through here and then get up to the high ground back that way as well. So yeah, the positioning wasn't too great here. So now you're already down a hero. So that's really bad. So I don't think this fight's going to play out probably too well. I really like that anti-nade. The sleep dart was a little ambitious. I probably wouldn't have tried to use it, but I don't think it matters too much. You've pretty much already lost the fight. It's not really too much your fault. It's the Zenyatta's as well to blame. He shouldn't have dropped down. But yeah, I just would have changed your positioning here all around. So this fight's definitely over. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one. Alright, so we're on the second segment of the map right here, and we're seeing the payload section. And already this is kind of weird. I don't know what your diva is doing. I will say that I'm not a fan of your positioning. I do think it's really smart for you to get the high ground right here. Actually, to get high ground in general is good, but I don't think this spot is where you want, because you don't really have a very good angle. You probably want to be located where your soldier is. So what you probably should be doing is locate yourself on this piece of high ground right here. So this gives you a lot of good options. You're able to see the entire area where the enemy is coming forward from this segment. And then you can also just use this stairway, go down there and heal up over time if you have to, or you could go and drop down here and regroup with your team at spawn as well. So you have a couple options of retreat. But either way, this is going to be good too, because being next to your Soldier 76 is really good because he can peel for you. He can click E and you can get some healing from that as well. And since the enemy team has no Ana of their own, Soldier is a really great peeler. If you're not sure what a peeler is, it's pretty simple. They're basically just going to peel the enemy off of you if they're going to dive you. And in this instance, they could, right? Because there is a Genji, and the Echo also can kind of go pretty quickly out of nowhere from angles you don't expect. So you can kind of be in a tough spot almost immediately. So being next to someone that could peel for you is really, really good for Ana. That's one of the reasons in the Overwatch League you see people play Ana Brig so much, is because Brig is basically the best peel character in the game. So yeah, I don't think this positioning on the high ground is that great. The angle is just kind of awkward. I do think getting the high ground is the right play, however. Let's go ahead and move forward here to see what you're going to do as they're moving forward. The diva positioning is just really awkward. You're not really able to do anything about that. Diva is definitely going to probably die. Oh, she got out, I guess. If you were right there with the soldier on the high ground, that actually would have been a pretty good thing, because then you would have been able to just use an anti-nade and heal nade. So the Genji would have gotten antied. The soldier could have gotten extra healing from his E. So the 40 healing per second would have been amplified, meaning that the Genji was pretty much not going to kill either of you, especially since he was antied. And you would have gotten that kill. All around, it ended up working okay. The sleep dart wasn't that great, but you can't. It's fine. You've already kind of won the fight. All right, so what you would want to do in this situation, you won the fight, right? That was pretty good. I think the positioning could have been better. I think you could have killed the Genji a little bit earlier. At this point in the game, you want to kind of think about what ults you want to use. So as you can see, you have 4 ultimates. So this is kind of what's going to happen a lot in the higher rank lobbies, and this is a really bad thing. Basically what happens is when you use your ultimate, what typically will happen is the rest of your team will just spit out their ultimates as well. And so you'll use like all 4 ultimates, get a team wipe, right? And then they'll all respawn, and then you'll have 0 ultimates and they'll have like 4 or 5. And then at that point, they'll team wipe you. So that's not very good. That's basically just going back and forth like a seesaw. But the problem is since you're on defense, they're going to just have time and space to push that payload. And because the payload is already so close to the end goal, you'll probably not have another fight. So team wiping is good, but you really want to save your resources and be a little bit greedy here. You don't want to use every ultimate. But this is a problem specifically for Ana, because when you use Nano Boost, it typically means you're probably going to combine it with something else, right? Like typically you're going to probably try to do a nano to the soldier, so soldier can have nano visor. Now that's decent. If you use 2 ultimates to trade and get all of, the enemy team, that's worth it. The problem is what will happen here is you also have a Kiriko Road. Now, Kiriko Road is also a good combo with Visor, so you really only need to use Nano Visor or Kiriko Road Visor. Now, this is kind of where my experiences kind of come through a little bit, and you need to do one of two different things. You need to either communicate to your team, I'm going to Nano Visor here, and that way you don't use any other ultimates other than Nano Visor, so then you could basically save these 2 ults for the next fight. Or you don't use your nano at all and you wait for your enemy team to use your ultimates, because eventually they're going to have to start using the ultimates. If they're not in voice chat, this is the better option for you. That means you're going to hold onto your nano and you're going to guarantee by not using it that you can save it for the next fight and then combine it with maybe the tank. Because either way, the nano can be used on a tank and it's always good. Or you could also just do a dry nano on Soldier to help him build his ultimate back up, which I wouldn't really think that's that great of a play. I think just nanoing the tank is all around going to be really good pressure for the enemy team. But basically what we're getting at here is you want to stagger the ultimates coming out from you. If you just blow all of your ultimates at once, the enemy team is going to team wipe you right afterwards, and there's nothing you can do about it because ult advantage at higher elos is extremely valuable. And at this point in the game, you know that they have ultimates. The first point was basically taken immediately, and there were no ultimates used by either team. This is the first set of ultimates. So you can assume pretty much everybody in the game has their ultimates at this point, unless these guys swap their heroes at some point, but that didn't happen. So let me go ahead and see what happens in this team fight. I'm going to imagine you use Nano Visor here. Okay, so D.Va actually used her ultimate. Genji had the blade. This doesn't look too good. That was an extremely good nade, though. Very good nade. I like that. So you're down your tank right now, and the tank used the ultimate. You don't have a good nano target anymore because Soldier died. Okay, so you're just going to give up the space and regroup. That's a pretty good idea. They used Echo ult. Okay, so now we have the Kiriko ult. Yeah, so we see that Echo duplicated the Kiriko, which is pretty interesting. That's not a very good play by them because they kind of have the advantage in space. So she probably should have copied a DPS hero instead. Copying a support hero can be good if it's a 5v5, but I don't see that to be very good for the Echo in this situation. All right, so since we're on the road right here, yeah, throw the cooldowns out. You can get your cooldowns back really quickly. Okay, so we're going with the Nano Visor play. Looks like it did really well. I like that. I like that a lot. All right, so you guys ended up team wiping him, but now we're kind of at a almost stalemate now, though. Both teams have 0 ultimates, which is a bit of a rough spot for you. I think the ult usage was a little bit wasted by a couple of people. Not by you and Soldier. I think you two did it very well. The D.Va definitely wasted her ult. I don't even know what she did with that. She died before the fight began and used the ultimate too. That was really unlucky. They got caught kind of out of position there. Got a really good sleep dart on that Kiriko. That point would have been really good if you had more people to kind of try to get that kill on it. This is a really good position for you right here. As long as you stay on the high ground here and you can just keep healing your team and throwing antis on the supports, then you're going to be in a really good spot. Because the Junker Queen can't reach you up there. Neither can the Mercy. The only person who can would be like the Kiriko. Oh, that's a little unfortunate. That was almost a perfect nade, but it was right during the Suzu. Your reaction speed was almost too good because you used it on them right after you saw the Suzu, but because it was a little too quick, it didn't quite hit them because they were still affected by the Suzu at that moment, which is a bit unfortunate. Otherwise, the anti there would have been really good. Okay, this Genji's going on you. Sleep Dart looked like it was really close. It's really good the Soldier's helping to get the Genji off of you and peel. Just what Soldier should be doing. Here you want to save your cooldowns for when the Genji inevitably dives on you again. That was a bit of an early Suzu. Okay, no, that's a good anti, though. If you get the kill on the Junker Queen, which you do, that's worth it. Really good Sleep Dart here. Very good. Okay, so here's the problem here now, though. We're looking at another situation where the payload's really close. You have basically 3 ults up. The problem here, too, of course, is you know that they're coming up to some ults, too. You don't really know what ults they are. You can kind of guess a little bit. Like, I wouldn't guess that Junker Queen would have it, but at this point, Genji's been doing a lot. You could assume that Dragon Blade's coming for sure. But you have 2 whole minutes still to defend, so you really need to stagger these ults out a little bit. Hopefully you don't use all 3 ults at the same time here. But you can't really control the actions of the others. Okay, good. You got on the high ground like we said. That's perfect. Perfect positioning. The sleep dart is a bit ambitious. I like the nade there. Ooh, we're using a bunch of ults. We used Road and we used Nano, and he just now got Visor. We should have waited until he had Visor before we did these ultimates. Still decent, though. I would have definitely waited just like a half a second more just to see that he had Visor. But now you're completely tapped. You have no ultimates, and the enemy didn't use their Genji Blades. So you know for sure Genji Blade's coming. So this is going to be really, really difficult for you guys to pull out of. At this point, this is where you should position yourself like super far away from your team, because if you're near your team, then Genji is going to kill one of them and then also dash to you right afterwards. Yeah, I like being in the doorway behind you even more so. I would not be near or grouped up next to all of your allies. That would not be what you want right now at all. Unfortunately, they're pushing the point right now. Yeah, that really sucks. Your Devo is diving the backline on the Zenyatta, and while she did get the kill, they basically forced you off of your good positioning, and you were forced to touch the point. Oh man, that's so tragic. I definitely see what you were thinking there, because they were going to cap it if you didn't touch it, and you didn't want to get, I mean, you were kind of screwed. You needed, yeah, you needed your tank there. I can't really blame you for that. I totally see what you were thinking there. You needed to touch the point, but you were kind of doomed. While the enemy Diva did kill that Zenyatta, it really wasn't worth it because you needed to have her for the point contest. But yeah, I wouldn't blame yourself. I thought your positioning was really good. If you were able to stay on the high ground, you probably just win that fight. But you needed someone to kind of contest the point. I wouldn't beat yourself up over that, though. I totally think that's fine. This positioning is a little awkward. So you know that the Junker Queen's over here, and this positioning, it doesn't really help you much, right? Like, you get to see this area from here, but the enemy can just wall climb up here, or in this case, already be up here, right? It's much better for you to be on the other side of this platform, so then you can see the payload and heal more, and you can also see people who get over here, because they have a lot of people that can wall climb, can even jump up here with the Ash Coach Gun. So this spot is actually like really deadly. So being here in this position and just on this side of it in general is not going to be what you want. You have to be on this side on the left. Because Junker Queen, she gets her shift ability, she's just going to rush you and kill you, unless you land a really good sleep. Yeah. This isn't the best positioning. This is really, really risky. You really want to be over here. Basically, rule of thumb is if you see a Soldier 76 or your other support, you probably want to be grouped up with them. Only instances where you don't want to be grouped up is if the enemy has like certain ultimates, right? But right now, you know they don't have them because they just use those ults, so... Yeah, this is what I'm afraid of. She's just going to rush you now. Yeah. So that's why that positioning wasn't quite ideal, as I'm sure you kind of learned. That spot's not very good to be in general. You don't ever really want to be there as Ana. You always want to be more on that left side. That left side also has a little room that you can retreat to, because if you're like up here, you can run back here and there's like a health pack that you can get. I believe it's even a mega too. And then you could kind of pop out on this side as well. The right side is just way more dangerous in general, so I don't recommend doing that. So yeah, let's see how this plays out. You have no ultimates. You're getting a little close to it, but this is looking really bad because the enemy team has a huge ult advantage right now, which does happen near the end of the game, especially if you're blowing your ultimates all at the same time. Oh yeah, they have the Junker Queen ultimate. Really good sleep, but unfortunately you're bleeding. Yeah, that's rough. The only thing that I think I would have done differently there, the Sojourn was going to die no matter what, because in my opinion, I think it would have been better for you to just stick with the Soldier and heal the Diva. Because you're so close to your Nano, you want to prioritize keeping the Soldier alive. One, because he's really close to Visor, and then two, you can also get a lot of ult charge off of the Diva, who's possibly able to contest the point, which means you can either Nano the Diva when she needs it, or if the Soldier still has the Visor, which probably isn't likely in this kind of situation where it looks pretty bleak, he'll probably pop the Visor almost immediately. But if he doesn't, then getting the Nano with the Visor combo is like your main priority here. So I would have also just abandoned the Sojourn over on the right side as well, for one other reason, simply because I saw the Kiriko here. I don't blame the Sojourn. Like, it's not your fault that the Sojourn died, because Sojourn was right next to Kiriko this, like, whole time. So, in theory, right, the Kiriko should have kept Sojourn alive. Like, that's not your fault at all that they died. But yeah, I would have just stuck with the Soldier and tried to pocket the Soldier here. Another thing, if you were with the Soldier and you were on this high ground, one other thing that you could have done is you could have kept your Sleep Dart and you could have used it for the Bob, which would have been a pretty big impact. The Soldier might have lived, especially if you're like pocket healing him too from over here. The downside of that is the Genji probably would have been coming for you, but I think the alternative was dying to a Junker Queen ult. Yeah, I kind of like the play over here, but this is more of a what-if situation. But I do think if you were looking back at that play, the Kiriko Sojourn on the right side, I would have tried to go to the left side and try to heal the Soldier and the Diva. I think that would have been my priority, because in theory, the Kiriko has the Sojourn. It didn't really work out for you, but that's okay. I think in general, though, just sticking by a Soldier 76 as a healer is going to always play out as a good idea. I'm going to imagine that nobody's able to contest this one, so they're going to cap that point. Yeah. All right, let's go ahead and check out what's going on offense. All right, so you guys are running kind of an interesting comp here. This is going to be a little bit difficult. I wouldn't really throw the Sleep Darts out there. I feel like saving the Sleep Darts are going to be a bit better for you. Those Sleep Darts are a little too ambitious. Throwing a nade out there I think is good, because that's a pretty good reward if you actually land it. That's rough. Ash headshot. What was your health at before that? 90? 100? 90? To be fair, I feel like you should have been healed by your Zenyatta there, but the Zenyatta was frontlining for some weird reason. Like, Zenyatta should not... Like, this Zenyatta is the one who should have died to the Ashe, not you. And you ended up dying because of it, because he's not healing you, and instead he's just DPSing. So this is more of a thing also in Masters that you see a lot, is, you know, people like to be greedy on supports and do a lot of damage. And this is really dumb. Like, a Zenyatta in this position, he should just be dead. Like, a million times over, he should just be dead, right? I can't believe that the Ashe is just not killing the Zenyatta and instead is just shooting you while he's frontlining and not healing you and just focusing on damage. I do feel really bad for you in that instance. That's not entirely your fault. I think in general, though, you probably could have waited a little bit. I mean, you're at 100 health. Probably could have waited like 2 seconds for your nade, use it on yourself, or just wait for the healing over time to kick in a bit. Don't feel shame in just backing off a little bit and healing. Regrouping on the first point is very easy and the quickest it ever is, right? So don't feel like bad at all about that. If you need to back off because you're at half health and just heal up a little bit, absolutely worth it. You should value your life as Anna very highly. I like that you're nading yourself there. Okay, you got the kill on the Genji, the trade. Not bad. The Zenyatta wasn't really healing anyways, so now you just have to keep everybody alive. The Zenyatta will come back a lot quicker than the Genji, so when you're attacking on this type of map, it's generally better to trade, because it's much quicker for your team to regroup than their team is. So now you have you have no really good nano targets here. Ideally, you could try to use your nano early on maybe your tank, or you could try to save it for a visor, but because he's so far away from a visor, your Sojourn nano is actually a pretty good combo. So you could do that. I would either use the nano on D.Va, hope that she goes in and creates space, especially now that you've moved forward and you have this high ground position. That could be a good play. Alternatively, waiting and securing the double ult combo, that would be way better because Sojourn just has way more impact. Nano Sojourn is extremely strong. Yeah, right there, you weren't really looking at your D.Va. So like right here, you're kind of like worried a little bit about these guys, but they're not really in any danger. You should be looking at your D.Va right now because she's out in the action. Here I would throw a nade at the enemy. I would have tried to anti the enemy right there, especially at this window. Right here would have been a great time because you know the Genji just used deflect just a second earlier. He doesn't have it. Trying to keep your D.Va alive. I like that. Okay, so at this point, you could nano Sojourn. Sojourn already killed 2. Yeah, I wasn't a fan of you trying the DPS Zenyatta there. Your Sojourn just got done killing 2 people. That's okay. You still have a minute 145 here. I think it would have been better to invest your time focusing on healing there because your Sojourn was doing a lot of work. Now we have a nano combo with Sojourn for this next fight. That's ideally what you're looking to do at here. And then you have the Zenyatta Transcendence for the Genji Blade. So you probably want to stick right next to your Zenyatta for this fight because you know if your team has ultimates, that's one of the general things, right? You both had the round 1 fight happen. Your team has 3 ultimates. So you can assume that the enemy team probably has 3 ultimates. That's just how it goes. That's kind of how ult tracking works, especially for the very first ultimate usage, right? In general, that's how that first round of ultimates is always going to go. Depending on what's going on in the game, unless you're getting completely stomped, you can always assume if you have 3 ultimates, the enemy is going to have 3 ultimates. So let's go ahead and hope that you do. No! Yeah, that nano was a little rough. So you nano the D.Va, and she's like not in the action at all. So one of the best parts about nano is it actually heals. So the best thing to use, if you're going to nano a tank, use it when they're diving the enemy team. And basically you can use that nano as a way for them to just have a huge extra boost of healing. And then you can go back to your business doing other things. I'm really not a big fan of the nano here. It should have gone to Sojourn for sure. And if you are going to nano the tank, you want to try to utilize that healing from the nano. That's a big part of it. Unfortunately, your nade got eaten. That would have been really good otherwise. Yeah, the nano just didn't get any good value there. Transcendence is not very good here because they have Genji Blade still. So now you have no defensive way of countering the Genji Blade. You have the DPS ult going on. See if Sojourn... Yeah, pocket healing the Sojourn's good there because she had her ult going. Here comes the Genji Blade now, and you have no way to counter it. Yeah, that was a really bad usage of a few different things, not just by you, by everybody. You all basically staggered your ultimates, and that's not what you should do when you're attacking. If you're attacking and you just do 1 nano boost, and then a Transcendence, and then a Sojourn ultimate, that's not going to help you win the game. You kind of all have to use those ultimates at the same time to burst the enemy down before they can do something. Especially if you know that they have a Zenyatta as well, because they can just use Transcendence through one of those ultimates. So let's hope that this last fight, one of you can touch the point. Okay, so you touch it, you should be... Ooh, the Genji might go for you. I do think you need to push, though. You need to... Okay, you need to sleep the Bob here. So you see the Bob came out. You should have been sleeping this Bob. Yeah, this Bob's been out for a hot minute. You didn't sleep it. Yeah, it's a bit rough. I think you guys could have won that first fight when you had all the ultimates, but The other thing about that fight, though, it's a little bit rough. I don't think there's much you could have done at that very last bit there. The better thing you could have done is try to get a high ground positioning and then try to sleep the Bob and then try to get a better anti-nade on some of the enemies, or just try to use a nade on her diva to try to keep her alive and play defensive. Probably would have been better. All around, there were a few small mistakes that were made. I think that you could have played a little bit better with the positioning, but it's easy to tell that your mechanics are really good. I don't think you need to work too much on that. I think the positioning is one of the biggest things, as well as ultimate usage, that you need to work on. And that really comes on a map-specific basis. Just by playing your hero on all of the maps, eventually you'll kind of learn what the good and bad spots are. If you're playing Ana, always try to stick next to someone that can help peel Genjis off of you. For example, your other support or a Soldier 76 are going to be basically your best buddy. Always try to play nearby them so they can help you out. Also, try to keep your sleep dart available for usage when people are diving you, or if you know a big ultimate like Bob is on the way, because I noticed you threw out your sleep dart a little too aggressively. You should hold on to that as a defensive option when you need it the most. And then other than that, you just need to work on your ultimate usage, because I believe that if you combo nano a little bit better with the right targets, it's going to be way better than nanoing just a diva. Diva's okay, but it's really not the ideal target. So yeah, you just kind of need to combine your ultimate with the other DPS heroes. Using voice chat and communicating with them is going to be going a really long way with a nano boost. So make sure to try to just say a couple of things to them like, hey, I'm going to nano so you can visor with it, or whatever. Just having a little bit of coordination, even with the tank, be like, all right, Diva, I'm going to nano you, just go in whenever and I'll do it. Have a little bit of coordination with that, and I think it's going to take you a long way. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Peace.